Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. I am your host, Roberta. If you are looking to improve your communication skills, both professionally and personally, this is the podcast you should be tuning into. By the end of this episode, please remember to subscribe, give a rating, and a review. My very energetic guest today, Katja Schleicher, who is based in the Netherlands currently. She's a very global phenomenon. She speaks 3 languages, is a communications expert who is also a keynote speaker, a communications coach, a trainer, especially an intercultural trainer, is here to share with us so much more, drop so many nuggets when it comes to communication. As I said, she is an expert in the field. So please help me welcome Katja to the show. Hi, Katja.
Hi, Roberta. How are you doing? Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. I love your energy. I love your perspective on communication. This is going to be an exciting conversation.
I think so too, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
There was always, when you follow a conversation with people, that you have moments where you feel comfortable, and then you have moments where you totally feel cringing, and it's like, ah. And with me, with people, it has been always, and I have the feeling from, oh my God, he said it so beautifully. Already when I was a little child. And when you are a child, you feel a couple of things without really knowing them, without really owning them. But the beauty of words, that was always something that came like a miracle to me, easily. And that never changed. And the cringing part always has been there too. When someone had a beautiful idea and was talking to me about that idea, and then someone else asks and say, hey, could you please explain that idea to a group? And nothing, like really nothing, comes out of that beautiful head. That always made me like, oh my God, no, why? Because you can do so much better. So, and over the years, this is how I basically honed the talent I have, studied communication, linguistics, psychology, all the things you study.
Right.
And I turned that feeling into a talent and into a business. And so I worked for corporates for 20 years as their spokesperson, PR, marketing, all that. And in 2006, I started my own company as, indeed, what you said, as keynote speaker, trainer, coach, everything about communication. So if you need a presentation done better, if you have a panel discussion you have to go to and to make a good impression, I'm the person to go to. And what you said, indeed, my absolute pleasure is it to work with groups or individuals that incorporate different cultures. That could be different countries, that could be different continents, but it could be different cultural clusters. Like, okay, there's a marketing person that has to explain things to people from procurement or legal, right? These people, even if they speak the same language, they don't speak the same language, and they
in the corporate field. Yes,
exactly. So this is what I'm doing. I do that mostly for corporate clients, for business clients. What happens frequently is that people who work with me on a corporate scale come later on into a coaching and say, can I ask you something about my private life? Yeah, but usually I'll be asked to speak in front of bigger groups to enhance their communication, and I do that in trainings too.
Yes, I love that. And especially, like you said, when we always talk about intercultural differences, we always think different nationality, different language. Oh, now every corporation, these big corporations are becoming more global. So they have offices in other countries, or they have staff in the same department from different nationalities. But a lot of us don't think about one department being culturally different from another. So that was a new perspective.
Which is it always, if you sit in a meeting with marketeers and let's stick to finance department or procurement, it is like really they come from two different planets. And in my work, it's beautiful if I can bring them closer together, because both of them have beautiful ideas and both of them are right in their own perspective.
Job descriptions, yes.
Exactly. And there is not just one way, there is millions of ways. And if I can support these people to understand each other more easily and to enhance the result by that, then everything is fine.
And then when it comes, you mentioned doing a better presentation. So let's say you're a marketing person and you want to do a presentation so that the procurement or finance people get the buy-in of what you're trying to do, why you need the money to do the marketing campaign. Well, give us 3 top tips of what you should incorporate into a presentation for it to be fully convincing.
Let me expand it a little bit to the 4 areas you should look into. And one of the areas you could use from out yourself is everything you can do for that particular audience you're addressing that has to do with body language. So if you prepare your presentation up front, even before you open up any PowerPoint slide or whatever support you're going to use, have a look at your own body language and check what is, for that audience, for that surrounding, appropriate, what is impactful. Do I need to stand up while the others are seated, which is a strong signal? Or do I sit down while everybody else is seated as well? These are decisions you should not leave to the moment. This can be prepared and should be prepared up front. So body language is one of the biggest points where you should look toward. What are my gestures? Where do I stand in the room? Many things, more than we ever think, can be adapted, can be adjusted to our needs, to the needs of our presentation. Now that's number one. The second one, the second quadrant is everything that has to do with the structure of the presentation or the talk, whatever it is. How do I start? How do I lead through? What are my main messages? What are my anticipated takeaways? If I do not plan that ahead, I just have a follow-up of a couple of graphics in my presentation, I might not end up with my audience where I want to end up. That's the second one. So how do I end? What is it? How do I want them to
take away? Yes.
So, and you can anticipate that. One question I always consider a very helpful one is that you imagine that people leave your talk, your presentation, the conversation you had, and imagine there would be the next day a headline in a newspaper or a news website. What would that headline be? How would that headline sound or look like? And if a headline is never long, right? It's a
of course, just straight to the point.
Yeah, exactly. So, and let's assume that the 200 people who were just listening to your talk, everybody has a different headline. And then probably your key message was
all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. So the third one is everything language. We call it lingus. So this is something you should prepare up front. And you were mentioning that the clusters, right? When I'm speaking to accountants, I probably use different language. I do use different analogies. I use different key visuals, right? Where's my intonation? Do I intonate where it's important, or don't just have this modulation that never changes and going
Monotonous.
flatly, right? So that. So, and this again, you can prepare. You should. It's nothing that you should decide on in the moment. No. And the quadrant number 4, we call sensors. There is, every time an audience graces you with its presence, they are there for you and for what you have to say. This is a source of energy. These people bring their life experience. They bring their daily experience. They bring their experience in the moment. So when you have a presentation, let's say at 8:30 in the morning, and you're the first to present in a long day, in a long row of presentations, just as an example, that's the difference than when you were the last one and everybody is hungry and thirsty
and cranky and tired.
Exactly. Right. So that requires a different interaction. I'm not saying that you should present in the morning or in the evening. That's not important. But my point is you should have a look at the circumstances, at the frames around you. Who is speaking before you? If you're coming after the CEO of the company, it requires a different opening. If the CEO speaks after you, it probably requires a different ending. So in these 4 quadrants is something you can do upfront. And I'm German. I love planning. Everything that can be done upfront in a presentation, in a talk, is well invested time. Because on stage, in a conversation, there is rarely room for anything, really.
Planning actually reduces the fear. Whatever anxiety you could, the more you plan, the less afraid, if at all, you are about your presentation and your speech. So it actually helps you feel much better and much more confident about your speech. Yes.
Even if when things go wrong, you have probably prepared a scenario B or a plan C, and all of a sudden, if you have practice, you can fall back to that, and then the nervousness is not that strong anymore.
You don't panic. Yes, you can be flexible. You can find that moment to play around with your audience, connect with them, which brings us to that big word, connection. What makes us connect with our audiences, and why is connection so important?
Let's start with the second part of the question.
Okay.
You do it for them. This is such a preliminary important point you have always to be aware of. You are not in a presentation or on stage for yourself or for your boss. No, there is an audience that invests time and energy. And this is worth your best efforts. And the first part of that is, and the beauty of it is that your audience comes with the wish to connect to you. They want to be entertained. They want to be informed. They want to be integrated. They want to be connected to. So this is an open door. And we as presenters, as communicators, we better live up to that. Because in the end, if you plant the seed of your messaging into someone else, if you anchor your message, then you'll have a chance that the person, the group of people, is talking about what you have said to others. And that's what we call spreading the word, right?
Yes.
So that is the only way to achieve that, is to connect to your audience. And that's why audience connection, to have a conversation on eye level, even if you're on stage and the audience is sitting somewhere down below in the dark, it should still be a conversation. The moment you leave that conversation and start explaining or preaching or all the things that make a presenter fly away and leave the audience behind, that is the moment where the connection is getting broken, and where you simply lose. That's what we always call, you lose your audience then.
Because now you make it about you and not about them.
Yeah, exactly. And it should be, to a certain extent, even if you are the expert in the field, that's why they ask you to give that presentation.
Right.
It is, you do that for them. Indeed, you're totally right. It should be always an us. Even if you are the person explaining things, it's never an me and you. Exactly. Yeah.
Speaking of explaining things, let's take examples of things like data or stats or very high-tech language. And you need to explain to an audience how it's going to benefit them. What are some of the things that you should take into account when doing that? Because not all of them are going to speak tech or are going to speak that high-level data stuff, and you have a ton of numbers on your slide. What should you be cognizant of in order to try and get them to understand?
We shouldn't speak tech. Behind the numbers, there is always a message. Behind every graph, there is the idea for a story. Let's assume you have to present the result of a research. And in your research, it says that the percentage of this and that has been improved by 20% over the last 6 months. Yes, just to create a number. Now, the number per se doesn't help us. What helps us, if you make that relate to what has happened in the past, what is the projection for the future? Is 20% a lot? Is it little? Is it more than you expected? Is it less than you expected? And from there, all of a sudden, there is a communication cluster built up that we can turn into a story. Because all of a sudden, let me give you an example of an insurance company who had a terrible, they had a research, and one of, for them, terrible results was that they had personal contacts, like face-to-face contacts with their clients, statistically only once in 7 years.
Once in 7 years, they spoke to their clients?
Exactly. Telephone and everything, fine, but once in 7 years. And
One-on-one.
Yeah. Oh my God. They were like, oh my God, we are so bad. Right? So now the number 7 was all of a sudden raised as the most important number. Now we had to, in this presentation I was working on, we had to translate that number into something that was really meaningful to the employees, that had a connection to what, okay, procurement could do, marketing could do, communication could do. So everybody, right? The number per se didn't say anything. But the moment you relate that number,
a story behind it.
Yeah, exactly. To goals and build a story out of that, then it becomes a narrative. And the narrative is most likely the thing that people are going to tell further. Yeah. So
that's
numbers,
what
don't
it's
be afraid
about.
of the numbers. The numbers are cool, but they are just the beginning.
Yes, they're not the full story. This is why we emphasize the importance of storytelling.
Yeah. On the other hand, and I have to be, I'm an advocate of storytelling for more than 20 years now. It has been, let me put it carefully, everybody says, oh, it's the storytelling, while they mean content marketing. Content marketing is no storytelling. Content marketing is content marketing.
Content marketing.
So the narrative buildup of whatever it is, a website, a presentation, requires a couple of things. For instance, it requires a conflict. If you don't have, in what you are going to present, if there is no conflict, the audience cannot relate to it. The audience cannot relate to the hardship of your task. They cannot relate that it was complicated to overcome all the obstacles. And that is why in the end, they cannot applaud your success. So you have to take your audience on this journey.
Yes.
What was the moment where you all of a sudden realized, okay, we can't go on like that, or we are bankrupt, for instance? The audience needs emotionally to understand your pain. And only then they can connect to the solution you offer emotionally. And that process is very often, at least what I see, is absolutely in the preparation of communication underestimated. We should take more time and energy and put it into that particular aspect.
But that's why we love movies. The storyline has conflict.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes, that's why we love movies. So in your storytelling, one, I think the conflict also makes you relatable, because everybody's got problems. Nothing is perfect.
Exactly.
Life happens.
No.
So if you start with, this was tough, this was the conflict, and this is the journey I went through to overcome, or to get to the point where there was success in the end, everybody can relate to that.
Or two parts of it, and all of a sudden you're emotionally connected, right? So the audience has to feel what happened to you. Amazement, pain, all the emotions we have, your frustration. If you do not show that, they will not so easily connect to your solution, to your idea you're going to present. We always say storytelling is like the door opener. It's nothing without the facts, the research, and all the stuff you have to do.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you bring it with a story, it is much easier for the audience to digest what you say, to relate to it, and to act accordingly. And that is the most important part. Being relatable is you're good on the way. In the end, we want your audience, or our audience, to do what we intended them to do. That is making us impactful and successful.
Yes, to take the necessary action after they listen to your message.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, when it comes to communication, we say on this podcast, it will benefit you both professionally and personally. Have you found that with some of your clients, even though you coach them in the corporate arena, that even personally, sometimes that translates to them having better relationships?
It always does. Even if the first meeting or the source is a professional one that people find me, it is always, because we are human beings, we do not leave our personality in the office or in our workspace, wherever that is nowadays. And then we strip down the personality, and then we go home and are a different person. I don't believe that this is the case. We are human, we are one, we are whole, and we like the same things. We like the same things in front of a computer and in a meeting and privately. So most of the tips I have for my clients, with my clients, are helping privately too. Let me use the example of asking proper questions.
Yes, please.
It's an easy tool that mostly works business-wise and privately, or personally. It works privately as well. If I'm asking an open question, that always is right at the when or how or who, is always better than a yes or no question.
Of course.
Works privately as well, because I learned so much about the emotional state the person is in that moment. And if that is your children or your parents or your best friend, it is always an easier connection if you know about their state of mind. And this state of mind, or state of heart, is easy to be asked, right? And not just in how you're doing, but if you ask something, what was the most exciting thing that happened to you today? They probably will think about the excitement. And then they will come up with something. And while they answer, you will see how they feel about that. You will get access to that emotional state of mind and heart. And the same works.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's different from, oh, Katja, did you have an exciting day today?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But then I say yes or no, and then that's done.
Right? It doesn't make my brain work. My brain works. If you ask me, hey, what was the most exciting thing? This morning when I got my coffee, there was this absolutely fascinating young lady behind the counter. Oh, and all of a sudden I know that for whatever reason, and I can ask you now, what made this lady fascinating? I don't know, her blue eyes, or the way she talked, or the way she whipped the cream to the coffee. And all of a sudden we have a conversation. And due to time, because we think we have to be fast and we should not bother people, indeed, we just said, oh, did you have an exciting day? Oh, yes, okay, good, bye-bye.
Done.
And then we are very, very fast instead of engaging in a real conversation. So asking questions is something that works like a charm in private, in personal, and in business. Just using one example, and let me add one more thing.
Please,
if you ask non-judgmental questions, very often we phrase up and, oh, why didn't you wear the red dress today? Right? Because for whatever reason, I think the red dress would have...
something is wrong with the red dress.
Or with the one you're wearing.
Oh, sorry. Something is wrong with what you're wearing. The red dress would have been the winner.
So there is this implicit thing when we phrase the question like that. Oh, something is wrong with the dress you're wearing. While we don't mean it like that. It's just in our mind that says, I like you wearing the red. So if you rephrase the question, so how about you wearing the red dress tomorrow? All of a sudden, there is a dance floor opening for you and for me. Now we can have a conversation, a true conversation about the red dress. And you would probably say, oh yeah, that's a good idea because tomorrow I'm on stage and what kind of heels shall I wear with it? And it would not be judgmental about what you're wearing today. It would be very positive about the red dress and tomorrow.
Because you know what happens when I feel judged? Sometimes I'm going to rebel and wear that dress even more. That's how humans do. Sometimes with the pushback of, okay, if Katja is judging me, I'm going to show her that I'm still a grown-up who can make my own decisions on what I wear. I'm going to wear that dress just because.
While it was... most of the times we do.
You meant well.
We have good intentions, exactly. But the way we phrase the things we say very often have this judgmental thing. Now, I'm don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of good judgment.
Of course,
it's important. Imagine we wouldn't judge. No, I want to judge politically. I want to judge economically. Absolutely sure.
Yes.
But very often we enter a conversation already with a judgment in our mind. Right? Oh my God! Now this is not working, and you haven't even started yet, right? And especially when we talk leadership communication, this is what happens frequently because very often everybody who's doing leader or is in leadership today is under a tremendous pressure, timing wise. Budget-wise, there is, it's hard.
And then managing of people, where the communication skills kick in, and usually they were not hired for communication skills.
Never, hardly ever. So we should do that much more, but we don't. So all of a sudden, then the daily life kicks in, daily KPIs, procedures, products, whatever, and all of a sudden there is a huge pressure. which makes it very often absolutely hard to ask a non-judgmental question, because a judgmental one would be so much faster on the short one.
To get to the point.
Exactly. But on the long run, of course, it damages the relationship you have built up with your team, with your peers, with management, right? So very often it helps just to take a tiny baby step back and use a second to think about the proper phrasing for this particular moment, for this particular situation, having looked at the person you were talking to or the group of people.
And we do speak a lot about leadership in this podcast. What else besides asking quality questions should leaders remember when communicating, especially with their teams?
What people probably would expect me to say is, oh, you have to listen. Yes, but let's tick box that for this particular podcast. I'm pretty sure many people spoke about good listening skills, which is a good. Let me dive into something different. One of the things I would wish we would take more time for, more energy, and would practice it more, is true presence. Let's assume you called a meeting. You're the manager, you're the boss, you lead a group of, and you call a meeting of 20 people. And sometimes it's very small signs of body language, of belonging, of how you open this meeting, how you lead through that meeting, that show the people that you were there through the whole process. Very often what happens is, okay, meeting kicks off, and then boss says, okay, good. Thanks everybody for being here. And, and the mind is not with the group at this moment. The mind is already with agenda point 1, because time is ticking, the clock is ticking.
The pressures you mentioned earlier, yes.
Right. So if we have a leadership position, if we would really took the effort to be more in this tiny little moment, then we will, even before one word has been said, will connect to each other in a different level. So this is something I really would wish leaders would do more.
Like
although I'm agreeing fully on the listening skills, but let's not dive into that today.
Yes, those are mentioned a lot. You're right. Yes,
I can imagine.
And like we say, we're not judging them, because they're under a lot of pressure, and they were hired for their technical skills. So this is new territory for them, and they get thrown in the deep end. Oh, you get a promotion, great, with the bonus and the higher salary, but then managing a team is a whole new skill.
Yeah. Yes. One thing that I recommend doing, or two, is one of them is shadowing. Just let someone, could be a coach, could be someone else, let this person shadow you as a leader in the management. Let them walk with you for a day and then share the observations afterwards. Should be someone you like or you trust. And the second one I love is the principle of reverse mentoring. Because when you hire, or if you ask someone who is coming from a different cultural cluster, could be that you ask the marketing junior, and you're the leader of a group, and you're maybe
in legal.
Exactly. You're the legal boss, and you're managing, let's say, 250 people, and you've done it for the last 25 years. Now, that would be cool to be reverse mentored by someone who just joined the company, second job, and has no legal experience whatsoever. It's just doing social media marketing. And just by being together with the person who is completely from a different orbit, just having a conversation with that person once or twice, having a lunch, a week or a month, it doesn't really matter. it will really, really, really break a couple of patterns that you're, as a manager, as a leader, probably not even aware of anymore.
So it brings the shadowing and reverse mentoring, sounds to me like they bring more self-awareness.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes you don't see yourself, you don't see the impact you're having on others or your patterns, as you say. So how important is self-awareness when it comes to communication?
To me, the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're good with yourself, if you have regular conversations with yourself that are not beating yourself up conversations, but that are realistic or encouraging, that you should be your best buddy. That would be cool. If me, myself, and I waking up in the morning and getting the day started, and it's going to be all right, and we make the best out of that.
Right.
So the self-awareness part helps you, and it's probably, especially when it comes to mental health things and all that, is an important one as well, because self-awareness helps you recognize and realize, what kind of day is that today? Is it a day where I say like, come on, today the world is mine, right? So give me whatever, it's going to be perfect. And then there is days where it's like, well, maybe today is not 150% day. So, or maybe last night I had for whatever reason, a tiny unpleasant experience. Let's assume we've been rejected by a group of people, and you do not feel that self-assured the next morning. That's good to recognize. That's good not to judge, but to recognize that, okay.
Yeah, acknowledge that this is what's happening and why I feel this way. Yeah.
And then react appropriately. My example is, there is days where I do not pick up the phone because I'm awful. I know this is a day when when I'm angry. I have anger days where it's like, nothing is working like I wanted. Oh my God, this is not a very good day to pick up the phone, because I would be in people's faces immediately, right? And then I talk to myself, I was like, you know what? Do some writing work, do some conceptual work, and only bother yourself.
Yes, because today is not the day to communicate with others.
Or at least not picking up the phone, maybe an email fine. So now, even many managers and leaders will say, yeah, I do not have that luxury because I have to do that every day. Yeah, but not to that extent as you've been doing it up to now. So if you find that balance, I think you get a great deal forward in self-awareness.
Because is it easy for people to get into self-awareness and trying to look into themselves? Has that been your experience? Is it something they willingly do?
We are improving. We are improving a great deal. Looking back, when I started my professional career, it was a disaster. It was deliver, team player. That already improved over the years. And with all the new generations that are coming into the labor market, it's getting better and better. And we realize that we are an incremental part of the success. It's getting better. So I have hope. It's still a huge deal. People think like, oh my God, how do I do that? I don't know. Do I need to go to the shrink? Ooh, right? This kind of thing. While it's not the case, but befriending yourself is a very good precondition to become a very good communicator.
Yeah. Right. That is so true. Katja Schleicher, I could speak to you all day if I could. Thank you so much for sharing such great insights with us today.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you
Please
for
leave
having
us, my pleasure. Please leave us with some words of wisdom before you go.
This is always such a wisdom. There is make sure that whatever you say, whatever you write, includes three things. It includes yourself, it includes the audience, and it includes the greater good. And with that, all of a sudden, 1 + 1 is not just 2, but 3. And I think when we all do that a little bit more, the world is going to be a better place.
Words of wisdom from Katja Schleicher. Thank you so much. And before you go, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on all social media because I'm a social media maniac.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, of course, and there's only 2 people with my name, so you find me easily. You find me on Twitter, we're on a media coaching. That is, you find me on find me on Instagram, where I'm the shoe biscuit, and recently you find me on TikTok. I'm still testing and trying. Yep, but I think we should not let TikTok be in the hands of the young people alone. No, there's a good reason to do that professionally. So you find me on TikTok under my name, Katja Schleicher, as well.
I will write everything from your links on the show notes. Thank you very much for your time today.
You're so welcome. Thanks. Thank you.
That was Katja Schleicher, the communications expert who's a keynote speaker, a communications coach, and trainer. Remember to subscribe, give a rating and a review, and we will be with you next time.